What's up YouTube, Ben Bond here and welcome to my editing bench. As you saw in the video earlier, this was one of my favorite shoots I did back like 2 years ago. I didn't have a lot of behind the scenes videos for you guys, so I decided to do a breakdown of how I got the photos. First of all, this is Zinelzo, an amazing actress and a friend, and it's always such a pleasure to work with her because of the awesome outfits and amazing ideas that she always brings on board for us to shoot. Once again, as you saw in the video, this was a one light setup, and first of all, let me just tell you the gear I used. I used the Fujifilm X-T3. This was back when I was using Fujifilm X-T3, and then the Fujifilm 35mm 1.4. This particular lens is my favorite lens that I use for most of my portraits. So it's always in my camera bag, and it's really sharp. And even though most people prefer the f2 versions because they think that one is faster, I prefer the f1.4 because there's nothing better than having a 1.4 lens. Also, in terms of lighting, as you saw in the video earlier, it was a one light setup with the Celens 120cm octobus on camera right this way. I used the Godox AD200, which is also my favorite portable light. After the Godox AD600, I love using the Godox AD200 because it's not a situation that requires a lot of power like AD600. So I always love it when I have the AD200 as a backup and use it for situations that I don't need a lot of power. And also, even in these situations, I don't really need a lot of strobe power. Because when you check the settings, I shot at ISO 800 and shutter speed 1/60th of a second. The trick to this particular shot is that it's a shot that requires a lot of ambience. The ambience is really important in the photo. So in a shot like this, you may be tempted, or if you don't know how to expose for your ambience, you may get the light on the model properly or correctly light the model, but you would somehow kill the ambience. So it's really tricky. You have to balance the light hitting the model and also the ambience around the model. And this was the challenge for this particular shoot, because right behind her was this huge chandelier that was up. You can see in this shot. This shot was taken with the 18mm at f2. So I mean, I took that wide shot just for you to see how the chandelier is right behind the model. So if you switch to 35mm, it compresses the background behind the model, and having the chandelier behind her also gave a really interesting background. And the ambience, the general ambience, was a really interesting backdrop complementing the outfit that she was wearing. So it was really important that I expose in a way that I get the ambience or the chandelier in the shot while perfectly illuminating her with the light. So one tip in this kind of situation is that I shoot at high ISOs, because increasing your ISO increases the ambience. And so if you want to get more ambience in your shots, especially if you're shooting in the evening in a room, you would have to increase your ISO. And also the other tip for getting an amazing ambience exposure is the use of shutter speed. With this shot, I shot at 1/160th of a second, and I could go as low as 1 1/100 of a second. I usually stop at 1/100 because like from 1/80th going, the shots can get, I mean, if you're not stiff or if you're not perfectly still, you could get some shakiness in your shot because the shutter speed is slow. So I usually stop at 1/100, and so this is also called dragging the shutter to let in more ambience in the shot. With the camera like Fujifilm X-T3, it really has a good ISO performance, and so if you go at 1/800 of a second, you still wouldn't really see a lot of noise in the shot. And so another trick is also shooting at a really low strobe power, because if you're shooting at ISO 800, the slightest brightness of the strobe will get the photo overexposed. So you really need to be careful and know how to balance the exposure, because the slightest overexposure of the strobe will get your photo really overexposed. And so I think with this shot, I shot the output of the flash was the Godox AD200 was I think was at 1/16th power output, which is really low. So, and also the size of the modifier, which already has an inner diffuser and an outer diffuser, also really soften the lights and also cutting down the exposure of the strobe. And so you just have to find that perfect output that will just illuminate the model, at the same time perfectly exposing her to blend with the ambience that you've also exposed for. I love everything about this photo so much. I love the exposure, I love the pose, I love the costume, the chandelier behind her. You know, shooting at 1.4 is always a joy because you get to really blur the background to make it an interesting background. Because like if you look at this photo, the chandelier behind her is not that interesting, but once it's blurred out, it gives that really interesting look. And as you saw in the video too, the space in which I was shooting the model was really tight, and so at a point I needed to lean backwards to be able to get even a shot like this to her waist level, because I was using a 35mm, which is a bit long or narrow compared to shooting at 18mm at that same spot. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll be doing more of breakdowns of some of the shots I've already taken that I couldn't show behind the scenes for you guys to see. So see you in the next video.